welcome to the underpowered favorite games of 2022, day number 4. This is our number 2 games that we loved in the year of 2022. My name is Shelby Stokes.
My name is Casey Cool. I hate you both. Come on.
I'm waiting for Phil. My name is Philip.
My name is Philip Karen.
And I'm
That
Eric
is Philip,
Scott.
Philip, Karen, and Eric Scott. What's up?
What's up?
What's going on, guys?
We're
I'm just now
video games,
realizing
I
in the
think.
run of show document that I am not following whatsoever. So I've just been slapped on the wrist, and we are back for a better episode. Who's ready?
Time out. I did slapped on the wrist and me, hey Shelby, you did. Did I care to you two?
I mean,
Hold on.
Yeah, no, I
There's a lot of
felt
yelling.
the vibe. But no, in all seriousness, we're talking about our second most loved game of the year. This was really hard for me this year. This top 5 list was very difficult. Who's in first? Who's in second? And I'll go first because that's what the run of show says. My second most played game is Inscription. Inscription is a game I am currently playing right now. It's again, I get to like the end of the year, I'm playing games, I fall in love with them, and I'm like, is this like the whole year worthy, or is this just like right now worthy? And I think the things that Inscription is doing makes it a valid title at any time of the year. So essentially what you're set up with is a very kind of simple card-based game. It's very run-like. It reminds you of Slay the Spire.
Right?
It's a roguelike type deal, yeah. But with each run, you gain knowledge in the beginning about how you can better play things. But as you continue to play through and kind of hit your head against the wall, like they want you to fail in the beginning. Like they're purposely setting you up to be destroyed over and over. And as you make your way through those first 3 runs or 5 runs when you're being destroyed over and over, they start to give you like legs up on the game design. So in other words, like you hit a point where it's like, now you can really grab more resources than you were able to do before. And it breaks the game. And it gets you to a point early where you're like breaking the playing field to where you're so overpowered that nothing could beat you. And it makes you feel almost godlike because you're like, I've hacked the system. Like now I can take on anybody. I am the man. And then as soon as you get through that first act of the game, and spoiler alert for Inscription right here coming up, it essentially flips the entire game on its head and it becomes a top-down RPG deck builder. Like you are going like through a map in a top-down scenario and you are building a deck as you go through a map, and then it continues to evolve beyond that. So the thing I really appreciate about it is like card games, I respect them. I don't normally get into them. And the reason that I'm so impressed with this game is it's taking that card-based format, and because it's like consistently giving me just a little bit more of an advantage, I'm going to see this game all the way to credits. And for a game like Slay the Spire, like the onboarding process is just, I don't want to dedicate enough time to bang my head against the wall to learn the mechanic that eventually, like this gives me enough of a dopamine hit and like one more thing or one more run mentality that makes it one of the better games I've played.
It looks interesting. I like that. So far, it seems everybody has a card game. Maybe Eric's might be revealed later. But I think that you had the art style is kind of ratchet, but kind of nice at the same time. Like there's some really crude drawings, like of the card. Like here's the card, and it's almost stick figure esque of like a cat. And you're like, okay, but then it makes some motions and it does some stuff, and there's some witty dialogue. How long is this game?
I believe it's like 16 to 18 hours. Full disclosure, I have not finished this game. I wish I had. My goal was to finish this game. More to come on that later. But yeah, it's a really good game. I'm currently playing it on PC. I did see a short come through my feed that this game has just released on Switch as well. 12 and a half hours for the main story.
That might be one I'm interested in.
Yeah. So I really liked Inscription. It was a really good game. Another horror game hits my list. Like that is the second horror game that's on my list, and I'm not a horror guy. So,
but maybe you are. Maybe you are not. I'm not a horror guy, but I like 2 games that are horror games.
I mean, I played RE Village, and I really liked that. It's not in this top 10 list, but it's really good. Phil, what was your number 2 favorite game of the year?
So my number 2 game of the year goes back to Nerd Cred, and this one is going to be Half-Life 2.
Choice.
Although I will say, I mean, I think this is a safe choice for me. There were a bunch of games I played this year that did not make the cut. This one definitely did make the cut for me. The game mechanics are there. I will say to you that halfway through the story, I totally forgot why I was running. I do understand the running joke now as to why people are always saying, when is Half-Life 3 coming? Because the game sort of ends in a cliffhanger and you don't know how the whole thing's going to end. But I really enjoyed it. The game mechanics were great. The guns were fun. The ambiance was constantly switching and moving back and forth. So I feel like Half-Life 2 is one of those games that is on a lot of gamers like never completed or never played. And I know that back when I was young, right, I didn't have any money and I wasn't able to play this game. I totally missed a lot of these games. So I'm going back now and beating them. So for me, this is an easy number 2. I really have nothing negative to say about it.
Were you a big Counter-Strike guy?
I don't think I've ever really played Counter.
Okay.
What was your favorite weapon in Half-Life?
That was my next question. Yeah. There's one right answer for me.
I think that the only gun that is actually first, there's the gun that shoots the orb, and I didn't realize for half the game that you could even shoot an orb, because there's one of the things about old games older games is they don't give you a tutorial of how these things work. Nowadays, they're like, do this and hit this RB for a special. Like back then, you just had to figure it. I can't believe I just said back then. Back then, you just had to. Yeah, you just had to figure it out. And so I played half of the game without figuring out that there was this amazing orb that could dissolve people. And then for whatever reason, the crossbow that they give you, whatever it is, they don't ever give any bullets. There's never any crossbow bullets. So it's not really a tactical weapon that you can use for a long time. So the only gun that was worth anything in that game was the shotgun. That is the only gun that you actually have enough bullets to use in every single level and can mow people down in essentially one shot. I also didn't know how to use the rocket launcher for the longest time, and I had to look up a YouTube tutorial because I didn't realize that you were supposed to leave your cursor on the target that you were shooting at. I thought you had to leave it on there just initially, and so all of my rockets were missing and I died. And streaming a game is different from playing it by yourself. Nobody wants to watch you die for an hour and a half and not get through the level. So I played for like an hour and a half.
People want to watch your game.
Yeah,
I don't know why the rockets aren't working. So
that segment with you in the helicopter in the lighthouse was a little frustrating for sure. But yeah,
that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah,
dude,
for sure. And like that red dot, like seeking ability after you do it, it's like, this is a really cool concept. Like this is really neat. But if you don't know initially, then it's rough. Yeah. Did you get to play with any?
Well, and then they only tell you
gravity gun.
What's that?
Did you play with any of the saw blades and the gravity gun?
Oh, I did that. I did the saw blade. I did the table. That's fun, right? Throwing tables at people, picking people up. And Callisto Protocol just came out and they use a lot of that same same mechanics. I'm realizing now that I'm thinking about it. Like you have essentially, right? It's the force, right? I mean, that's what it is. They're just one's a gun. It comes from a gun. Right. I mean, yeah, it's the force. You can grab people, pick them up and throw them. Right. So Callisto Protocol uses a little bit of that, but yeah, I definitely did some of that for sure.
Okay.
That's cool. Well done. I'm so glad you enjoyed that. That's one of my favorites. And I think back on it fondly. I haven't played it in a minute, but it looks like it's still held up. Like the part where you get to like throw bugs at people, probably like top 5 gaming moment.
Dude, I watched a friend of mine in high school throw a brick like 50 yards and kill somebody with it, like with the gravity gun. He like tossed it like a fishing line, and the NPC turned the building and the brick hit him in the head and killed him. And I was like, this game is amazing.
I was getting real stressed out at some of those parts where I wasn't advancing the story and I couldn't figure out what to do. And that gravity gun is a great stress relief, right? It's like this car in the water, this thing in the water, everything's gone that I don't need until we figure out what we're gonna do.
Figure out what we're gonna do. Eric, did you ever figure out what your number 2 game is?
I did figure out what my number 2 game is. My number 2 game, I had so much fun with this game, and this is a game that as soon as I was done, I had to run it right back and go back New Game Plus. Far Cry 5.
Oh,
I loved Far Cry 5. It was so much fun. I watched what got me into that game. I was on the PlayStation Store. It was a weekend special. It was like $20. I was like, oh, that looks interesting. I watched the intro trailer. It was like an 11-minute introduction, and essentially, you're flying into Montana in this helicopter into this deep wooded rural area, and you land into this religious cult compound, and you go in there to arrest this cult leader. And one thing leads to another. His followers sacrifice themselves. Your helicopter crash lands. You're stranded in this area, in danger, and you've got to get out. And it's just so much fun. It's a big open world adventure. You're going from region to region. Each region is themed sort of differently. One region it's open land, open plains, really good for plane travel. Another region there's a lot of rivers, a lot of boat areas, and then there's a wooded region, and all the enemies kind of just work within it. And there's just so much to constantly be doing. You can liberate bases, you can unlock new characters, you can do quests, and it was in the first game in the Far Cry series to introduce these buddy characters that you could come with you and team up with you. So you go to take down this base. Maybe you want to do it in stealth mode. So you grab the cougar, and you grab the girl with the crossbow, and you're just stealth killing stuff and just moving in, and it's just so satisfying. Or maybe no, I want to blow it up. So you get the guy with the rocket launcher, and you get the bear, and you send those, and it just and whatever you want to do. You've got the tools to fit your move.
Cut to commercial.
If you don't want to
do
do anything, you can go and get a helicopter and just blow a bunch of crap up. It's so much fun. It's so satisfying. The story is fantastic. And what Far Cry does so well is that puts you in a world that seems almost like it could be real. Almost like, could there really be some crazed deep cult that's just hidden in Montana that owns the various counties?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't want to speculate. Far Cry 5, like I said, it was $20. It was $20, number 2 for me, and I put hours into that game. A lot of fun. I mean, the gameplay, the first person shooter, everything very satisfying. Shooting, just a lot of fun. Play Far Cry 5.
I've never played a Far Cry.
I've played a little bit of Far Cry 5, and I would have to say that this game is very impressive because you can do a story mission, or you can do just like Eric said and go off into the woods and just mess around for 20 minutes. And there's so much fun per minute in this game that it is really impressive. I'm really impressed with this game. It's a co-op game that I've been playing with Dr. Z on stream, or not on stream, but I've been playing with Dr. Z, and it's a great co-op game too. I don't know if I have any experience with that or not, Eric, but I'm really impressed with this title.
Yeah, it was so much fun. So much fun.
Good call. And anytime you can send a bear in on a group of people, it's a
Yeah.
win.
Oh, yeah.
It's a W. It's a W for everybody.
Yeah. It's
EC, what is your second most favorite game of the year in 2022?
I went back and forth, and I know I really thought about where Guacamelee belongs in this list, and I got to the end boss, and I just never finished it. It's not my number 2. It is definitely that honorable mention that I had to get in because we're all sneaking it in at some point. No, and while that's a great game, and I'm gonna look at Guacamelee as a whole after I play 2 because I think of them as one game. Mine was the most broken, busted ass game ever this year. Pokemon Scarlet. It's so good. And my son's name is Ash, from Pokemon. All that aside, the game loop is so enjoyable to go out. I'm like, oh, let me find something. I randomly got a shiny in the first 5 hours. I was like, game of the year in my head when that happened. So rewarding. But the music is so good. I really wish they kept the catching mechanic from Arceus. I think that's something they lost and they need to go back to. Nailed battling. And we talked about on the show, one of our shorts, about the barrier to entry. Let's get rid of the barrier. Just make battling accessible to everybody post-game, right? And let's give them something different to hunt for, right? People want to shiny hunt. People want to play. People want to play competitively. They don't want to spend 2-3 hours and be like, oh, I messed up and I have to do something and reset it. They just want to play the game. There's a website that they love to use. People love to use in that space, and because it's quick and easy and accessible. But I love Pokemon, and like from the starters to the like exploring, right? It's the weakest. The gym leaders are like all adults that have a job, which I found like, all right, kid, like, get back to this thing. The Elite Four is weak. The enemy is not really an enemy. The bad guys like kids that there's a message about bullying. So the message for kids too is like, hey, maybe bullies aren't bullies, but like you gotta stick up for yourself. There's some like they really hit that like whole aspect about school, and then they hit you with the time travel stuff, and you're like, where is this coming from? Because there's always been the idea of a like multiverse in Pokemon, and you're like, okay, give me more ancient Pokemon. Where are the Ultra Beasts gonna come in? Like, what's gonna happen? They're definitely gonna do DLC. They can't do this to me anymore, though. Next time they give me an incomplete game, I'm gonna be like, nope. Out of spite, it was amazing and perfect. I'm not putting it on my list this year.
Dude, I hate to break it to you, but they're gonna do it again, man. Like, it's gonna happen again, guaranteed, dude.
They are pulling the Bethesda model. This is how Bethesda fans feel, or like Cyberpunk fans feel.
Definitely. And like, I think
really
the beauty
good.
of it is like game development is hard, right? And like games launch broken. That's just how it goes. I think the biggest like blowback on this is the graphical specs on here. Like if it came out broken and it looks gorgeous, I think people would be like, yeah, whatever.
It's not the Switch.
mechanics.
I want to add that. It's not the Switch that's the issue.
Well,
it's
we're not game.
No, it's
Let
not.
me preface
No,
that
it's
with
not.
we're
They
not
have
game
Witcher 3.
designers, okay? We are not game designers.
No,
But-
it's not the specs. Xenoblade 3, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Witcher 3 all runs on that system. They got to quit blaming the Switch as a hardware. It's the developer.
I mean,
Game
I'm
Freak is
okay
one
with
of
that. Yeah, I'm okay
Yeah.
with blaming the developer.
Yeah, it's Game Freak on them, man. They're a $1 billion franchise. How many other video games wish they're a $1 billion franchise?
So as
All of
somebody
them.
that
The
knows
answer
this-
is all of
So,
them.
okay,
so
but-
I'm gonna throw a wrench in here, Casey.
Okay.
It's Nintendo's fault.
Yeah.
It's
They shouldn't have
Nintendo's
given it the
fault.
seal of
Hey,
approval.
let's release the game in March. Finished.
Yeah.
Because the game is good enough that we don't have to sell 1 million copies at Christmas time. That's what I want.
Yeah,
right?
Me too.
they're gonna sell. So
Well, I
many
mean, I think that
copies
you
this
could
Christmas
say,
time.
I think
They
that,
are.
I think that you could say in a generalized sense, right, that this is a trend that is becoming more and more common
Mhm.
across the gaming sphere, which is that, to Eric's point, right, that games are just being released in perpetuity in beta and just being released like, oh, we'll patch it later, or oh, we're going to get something out there now and then we're going to do an update later on. And you look at some of the games that are legacy games, right? Red Dead Redemption
Pokemon.
2, as we were talking in Discord earlier, as being one of the greatest games of all time. To Eric's point, this game took 10 years to make, and it took 10 years to make, and they looked at every single detail of every single thing. There were no bugs in the game. There were no glitches in the game. The game plays perfectly for hundreds of hours, and it was perfect. And it's like, pay attention to detail and like put out something that is a quality product. But we have this thing now, and especially as we move into a free-to-play model, almost every single game that's being put out is being put out in a free-to-play model of like, oh, here's free and you can pay for these accessories, because they're making way more money off of like people spending hundreds of dollars to customize their character. Like, let's just not put out broken games. Like, let's not put out things that are incomplete.
Yeah, but
I mean,
but I
that's
think
really what it comes down to.
I mean, I would agree, like in a perfect world, but I think we romanticize the days of old where we had a cartridge and the game was the game was the game. I think where we're at now with software development as a whole and like the Kickstarter model and the Fig model is people want to test the market before they actually put in the work, right? You talked about Mario Strikers earlier in this podcast, right? If you don't get a following in that first 30 days, that game is DOA, dead on arrival. Don't worry about DLC. So they, as a company, are more, it's more to their advantage to launch a broken game that is really good and then fix it in the next 6 months and build the goodwill rather than putting something out, it failing, and then them scrapping the entire project. So in a perfect world,
3 days,
but I don't think it's changing, guys. I think that's where we are.
3 days, 10 million copies. 3 days.
And here's the thing. it's our
You upset,
fault.
Matt?
As it's
It-
our
yeah,
fault
it is
as
our
people
fault.
that are loyal to
Yeah,
it.
this is
We were
Yeah,
so
it's like-
loyal and so
yeah.
forgiving, and just there's
Yeah.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
this guy's right.
I stayed up. I changed the clock on my Switch so that I could play the game early
9
on
o'clock.
release
Because
day.
we're on the West Coast.
9 o'clock
East Coast
to
gets it at
play a
midnight.
buggy beta game that I love. And you know what? The next time it's released, I'm going to do the same thing.
I'm gonna be honest.
It's like that toxic relationship you just can't get out of. Like she really loves me. We fight sometimes, but at the end of the day,
Yeah,
everybody
she
gets
sold
mad.
my car and keyed it, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
She set all my pictures of my grandmother on fire. It's all right. We get mad sometimes. You guys gotta keep yes, and
I think
let's.
I think that I'm with Eric too. I'm a little bit of a DLC hater. I'm going to be honest. I don't ever really buy DLC. I never really pay for DLCs.
Me too. Yeah.
There was this thing that happened back when in the previous console lifespan that The Witcher did, right? Where when The Witcher 3 came out, the hard copy, they put this little note on the inside of because this was right when DLC and loot boxes and all these things were starting to come into the world. The Witcher 3 put this little piece of paper inside their physical copies, and the piece of paper said, whatever, like, this is the completed game, and whatever we put out is going to be free for you, and like, you paid your $60 for the game, and like, you should have a complete working game, and you get everything else that's coming for you is free. And that was with Witcher 3 anyways. And like, back then that went so hard, right? Like, everybody was like, dude, I'll buy it for that alone, for that statement alone. So I'm a bit of a DLC hater, and I'm with Eric in this. Just put out a finished game, or like, it's the same thing I say about trailers, right?
But you're
Don't
still
give me a
gonna do it. That was Eric's message.
Well,
Hold on, we're all still
the example that comes to me, and it's ironic that it's CD Projekt Red, but it's 2077, man. Like 2077 launched broken, and I believe 2020,
last year,
2021,
2021.
And like, the reverence for that game has gotten significantly more positive as time has gone on. Now they're talking about DLC, and people are frothing at the mouth for it. Then they got this Netflix show. So like, I guess my point is like, it's times are changing, and I think that we're going to see more broken games in the future. And as long as the hook and the loop is good, we're going to show up, because we're creatures of habit, and all we want is that dopamine.
It's
not me, baby, not me.
Yeah.
Speaking of dopamine, go ahead, Eric.
My prediction with Scarlet and Violet is by the Pokemon World Championships, because the game will be on display. It will be looking significantly better.
Yeah,
Casey, I think it's a great choice. You can leave the game off the list. You can put the game anywhere on your top 5 of the year.
it's good.
I love the game.
It's a
I'm
good
going to be
game.
playing it all year.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you don't need to
Casey right
apologize
now
for
has a
that. Like, you
paper-
don't need to apologize.
I'm
for
not
letting me
going
know.
to. I'm not. I am fine.
Don't.
I think he needs to apologize for it. I think so.
Well, yeah,
I think
you think
need
it's
to
broken.
apologize
They
for
think it's-
having a phone game and a broken game in your top 5 right now.
Hey,
No way,
hey,
dude.
hey.
We need a
Marvel
message
Snap
to
is
the
good.
fans after this.
Bro, how much money do you think Pokemon makes a month on that phone game, sir? Phone games are here to stay.
Listen,
Genshin
I don't know.
Impact,
My dad never worked at Nintendo.
I didn't say it, and I'm not going to. See, look
Got
at you. You
him.
had to print it.
Well, so here's the thing. Here's the
Got
thing.
Casey, you got to say it once
here's
before
the
the end
thing.
of the year. Come on, man.
Here's
Here's
the
the
thing, because we're short on time. If people want to get the last word in, it's going to be Parker Simmons talking about his top games of the year.
Good call. Take it away, Parker.
Well, here we are. The end of the year. That special moment where we look back at all the hours we wasted and celebrate them in style. I'm going to talk about my 3 top games of the year. First up, Pokemon Arceus. And what a way to start. What a way to start the year with a bang. This for me was a bit of a sleeper hit. I had 0 expectations going in. I thought, well, it's a little bit of a side game. Maybe it won't matter so much. I watched pretty much nothing about it. I didn't want to be spoiled. And by the time I got in there, I was blown away by the level of freedom that you're really given once you get past that first sort of moment. You know, there's crafting, there's battling, catching. a lot of stuff for Pokemon that's been rethought. You know, why should the screens transition when we're moving into battle? Why only catch one Pokemon at a time? Why wait for anything? You know, most people catch one Pokemon for the dex and then dump it, and this game thought about, well, how do we change that? How do we make it worth your while to catch more than just the one and encourage experimentation with your team with a new Pokédex? And that's been completely redone. Everything has been rethought. The entire time I was playing it, it felt to me, I could imagine the team sitting down in a conference room for the first time since they made the first Pokemon, and they said, hey, should we change some stuff? And they finally had permission to do it, and I think almost every choice they made was correct. Combine that, you know, with an engrossing story about a world where people are scared of Pokemon, and then slowly change as they get to live with them. And of course, the easiest shiny hunting in the history of Pokemon. Hey, this Pokemon right here, I just found it looking for footage of this game. It took no time at all. And this is as fun as a modern Pokemon game can get. I'll give an honorable mention to Scarlet and Violet. I spent just as much time, if not more, with those. I really enjoyed it, but it's a little 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I think this, Pokemon Arceus, is the future of Pokemon, and the future is looking bright. It's a beautiful game. I fully recommend it. Of course, action isn't for everyone. Maybe you don't want fast-paced. Maybe you really want to sit there and take your time and take turns, and that's where Triangle Strategy comes in. This is the game for you if you really like strategy and tactics, and I think it will draw you in with bombastic music, classic JRPG archetypes, and world building that is somehow both really camp and really serious. And then you've got the unique Scales of Conviction system, which creates branching paths and unique stories so that every playthrough is somewhat different. There's a lot of options, and I really appreciated that with this game. The class promotion system and side stories help round everything out to make it a much fuller experience than I think this team has ever made. You know, when you think about Octopath and Bravely Default and how wonderful those games are, but they always feel like they're missing those 2 extra notches to make it this complete and whole experience, and I think Triangle Strategy does that. I've really only got one gripe with this game, and that's level scaling, which is a nightmare on New Game Plus. That said, it is fantastic. The presentation is wonderful. If you are remotely a fan of strategy, you will love Triangle Strategy. It's in the name. There comes a time in every man's life where he has to get serious. He has to really think about his priorities. His family, work, fulfillment, inner peace. No. Treasure. Lots of treasure. Little toys. Little statues, cards, weapons, you name it. I'm talking about Dragon Quest treasures. This is the biggest surprise of the year for me. I went in almost like Arceus, expecting sort of a light pastiche send-up game of the main franchise, and instead I'm greeted with an entirely new subgenre about treasure hunting. And I was fascinated by this, and not just because it's filled with references to DQ's history, which, if you like, this is going to do it for you, but because I was able to explore, frankly, a larger world than I thought I was going to, with a team of recruitable monsters to find statues, cards, weapons, and more. All this sort of stuff that, again, really sends up the history of the game. And the more you know about it, you see these nice little in-jokes. But it's just so satisfying. It's like, it's this weird combination of Breath of the Wild meets the trophy section from Smash Brothers. It just, if that sounds remotely good to you, check it out. With a little bit of Pikmin 2 thrown in. All 3 of those experiences I love, and this managed to somehow combine those into one satisfying gameplay loop. So you're recruiting monsters, finding treasure, exploring the world, all while uncovering the game's main quest. And that loop, while so satisfying, is also really easily broken by your short attention span, which, if you're anything like me, you've got. Despite sinking hundreds of hours into games, I'm easily distracted, especially if you put a shiny in front of me, and this game's filled with nothing but sparkly things to be distracted by, and it's just so satisfying to run over. It's an addictive, fast-paced game with that classic Dragon Quest charm that just breaks down all your defenses in a nice warm hug. It's perfect for this time of year. All that said, huge Dragon Quest fan, so your mileage may vary. And those are the things that did it for me this year. So happy holidays, happy new year. Check these games out. Play what you love, do what you love. See you next year.
And thank you, Parker. We appreciate you very much. We're now going to jump into our wish list of 2023. These are the games that we are most looking forward to in the next coming year. Let's
Reverse
go
order?
back to the list. I'll go first.
Oh, yeah, we can do same
Sure.
order. Yeah.
So up until pre-game awards, this was a different game, but currently today, my most anticipated game is Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, I believe. This game looks gorgeous, and that first one was such a good Star Wars game. Like lightsaber, jumping around, making things happen, just difficult enough to make it so an advanced gamer had to get in. And seeing like the upcoming one and the working in of different characters and the flow of that game. Respawn is one of my favorite developers, going back to Titanfall. Like, I think they're amazing, and I'm so excited to see Jedi Survivor.
Okay. I think it's a good pick. I didn't know they were making another one of those. That's awesome. Yeah. What about you, Phil?
For me, it's thankfully a free-to-play game, which will be in beta. So to bring this full circle, I am most excited for the Stormgate beta that's coming out in the spring. So Frost Giant Studios, right? All the big developers from Blizzard, people that worked on StarCraft, StarCraft 2, Warcraft, they split off and they made their own studio. They have worked on this new engine that is going to allow for tons of units and things to move seamlessly when you play on PC. So it will be very streamlined. And I love a good real-time strategy. You know, I've done a few streams with StarCraft here on the podcast, and I just like a good. You know, there's nothing more in the moment than playing one-on-one against someone and knowing you're going to get crushed and still coming back for more the next day. So Stormgate is my game. Beta's in the spring. I'm excited for that.
Nice. Eric, I think I know what yours is.
I'm
And
allowed to.
You're
I'm
allowed to.
allowed
One
to.
is No Man's Skyrim.
No. Starfield, which
Yes,
was
No Man's
supposed to be released this year, was pushed out till first half of next year, probably so that they could make sure that the game is released properly, because they're a good developer and they want to make a good game like good developers do. So yes, Starfield, I'm really looking forward to that game. Probably going to be streaming it in 2023. But for me, the release of the Pokemon TCG, because card games, Pokemon TCG Scarlet and Violet expansion, March 31st. It was just released. So the new expansion of the TCG comes out, which, you know, not only, you know, it's for the collector, which I get to cover on my show. The collector, you know, we get the new designs of the cards, but, you know, the new expansion, which, new sets, new cards, new meta, all kinds of new possibilities with the new TCG expansion. So I'm really excited for those two things.
Nice.
And Casey, that brings us to you. Your wish list for 2023 is?
Well, because my dad did work at Nintendo. You would think I would say Zelda. They're both Nintendo titles. See, if anyone's gonna get the glory, it's gonna be me, you turds.
Didn't he work quality control?
He did work quality control. And speaking
Yeah,
of quality
that's
control,
why.
perfect games, stop it. Tears of the Kingdom is definitely up there. This guy, I'm about to put you in the corner. Tears of the Kingdom is one that I'm watching, but Octopath Traveler 2 is my most anticipated game of next year. And I think it's because when Octopath Traveler 1 came out, I spent most nights with my daughter, who was like a month old, and just holding her and playing that game. So we had a lot of bonding time. But I got just super into that, and I'm so excited. And we're going to be doing the Let's Play on our YouTube channel. I want to do that with it, and I'm very, very excited for that game. So those two, I'm just giving a heads up. We're going to be fighting for 1 and 2 next year, guaranteed.
Nice.
Unless some of them
somebody fumbles the bag real bad.
Careful. I mean, you just never know anymore, man. You just
Right.
never know. You just never know. So my second most anticipated, which I'm going to shove in here, is that Hogwarts game. Looks so darn
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I hope that turns out. But anyway, that concludes our 4th day of games. These were our second most loved games of the year and our wish lists for 2023. That wraps this episode. Thanks for joining us on day number 4 of our favorite games of 2022.